Please be seated. President, the court is now in session. Today, the chamber will hear the key document presentation by the defense teams in relation to Trump Cooperative and Krang Tachan Security Center. Mr. Chia Siu Huang, please report the attendance of the parties and other individuals at today's proceedings. Chia Siu Huang, Mr. President, for today's proceedings, all parties to this case are present, except Mr. Sonaron, the National Co-Counsel for Nuon Chea is absent for health reasons. Mr. Nuon Chea is present in the holding cell downstairs. He has waived his rights to be present in the courtroom. The waiver has been delivered to the greffier. Thank you. President, thank you. The Chamber now decides on the request by Nuon Chea. The Chamber has received a waiver from Nuon Chea, dated 28 April 2015, which states that due to his health, there is headache, back pain, and he cannot sit or concentrate for long, and in order to effectively participate in future hearings, he requests to waive his rights to participate in and be present at the 28 April 2015 hearing. He advises that his counsel advised him about the consequence of this waiver, that in no way it can be construed as a waiver of his rights to be tried fairly or to challenge evidence presented or admitted to this court at any time during this trial. Having seen the medical report of Nuon Chea by the duty doctor for the accused, the ECCC, dated 28 April 2015, who notes that Nuon Chea has a chronic back pain and feels dizziness when he sits for long, and recommends that the Chamber shall grant him his request so that he can follow the proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs. Based on the above information and pursuant to Rule 81.5 of the ECCC internal rules, the Chamber grants Nuon Chea his request to follow today's proceedings remotely from the holding cell downstairs via an audio-visual means. The AV unit personnel are instructed to link the proceedings to the room downstairs so that he can follow the proceedings. That applies for the whole day. And the Chamber would like to hand the floor now to the defense team for Nuon Chea for the key document presentation in relation to Trump Cooperative and Krang Tachan Security Center. Counsel, do you have the floor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors. Good morning, Counsel. Mr. President, my presentation today is divided into three parts. The first concerns documents relating to Krang Tachan. The second deals with living and working conditions in Tram Kok, while the third part relates to the treatment of targeted groups. This morning I will present a total of 30 documents, which is a little less than the list we initially circulated, as we have now removed some documents. Let me first turn to the documents that relate to Krang Tachan. There are 138 documents on the case file, listed in an OCP annex called the Tram Kok District Records. These documents are allegedly contemporaneous documents relating to activities within Tram Kok District during the DK period. By now, it is clear that these documents are by far the prosecution's core evidence for this trial segment. However, only 3 of these 138 documents have a located original, and even these originals are not on our case file. The other documents are simply copies, and the whereabouts of their originals are unknown. This makes it impossible, for example, to verify Pek Chim's recent claim that all executions would have been annotated on documents in red ink. Nor can we examine the nature of several documents with a single E3 number, but which appear to have been compilations of various separate documents, including correspondence back and forth. In a court of law, this is highly problematic, especially in the light of the possibility, which I will discuss a little later, that certain documents may have been forgeries intended to craft a very particular narrative of alleged events at Krang Tachan. And it is with these concerns in mind that we will soon be filing an official request for investigation into a selection of the so-called Tram Kok district records. Now, Mr. President, the first document I wish to present is a document which provides information about the provenance of these so-called Tram Kok districts. This document is E3/188. It is a written record of interview of Yuk Chang, Director of Documentation Center of Cambodia, and it is dated 2 April 2009. The relevant ERN numbers in English are 00342, 450 until 5, Khmer 0033475 until 61, and French 00485 until 40. In this document, Yuk Chang provides further information and identifies important sources regarding the provenance of the Tram Kok district records and their chain of custody. He notes that the documents were found at different times and are from different sources. He explains that the original documents related to Krang Tachan were lost, but that it is unclear how they were lost, when, and also where this loss occurred. However, he does explain that Mr. Sao Pirin, the current Secretary of State in the Council of Ministers, who we have requested to call as an additional witness in this trial segment, allegedly received the documents from the district front and gave them to none other than Ben Kiernan. According to Yuk Chang, Kiernan said he returned the documents and that they are in Tul slang, which they in fact are not. Sao Pirin, on the other hand, according to Yuk Chang, says Kiernan did not return the originals. Yuk Chang also provides information concerning the so-called Tram Kok district record sources. So, for instance, he states in his statement that Prime Minister Hun Sen is a source for documents numbered as D documents in the DC-CAM numbering system. Yuk Chang also says that other sources are from Takeo province, and that some documents were taken from the office of the district front, but it is unclear where the district front received the documents from. He also says that the district front supposedly collected the documents from the village and commune levels, but it did not take the original documents from Krang Tachan itself.
President, the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd request that counsel, when he's making these references, as I did, point to the specific year ends. He's characterizing the evidence rather than pointing to it. One of the things he just said is exactly the opposite of what is said in the interview that he's relying on. In order for there to be any reliability to this process, he needs to be citing where he's getting this from, so that he's not characterizing or mischaracterizing the evidence.
I can do that, Mr. President. I just thought it would get rather tedious if I number every reference, but if you require so, I will do it. Would you like me to get back to all the references, or shall I just go on from now? Yeah, otherwise it's getting really boring. So let me revisit the...
President, counsel, please make sure that you refer to the proper documents and the related year and numbers, so that concerned parties can follow your presentation. Thank you.
I will do so, Mr. President. Let me start then, if that is all right with you, with the second part of this document, where Yuk Chang provides information concerning the so-called Tram Kok district record sources. So first, I just said that already, but I will repeat it. Prime Minister Hun Sen, so he says, is a source for documents numbered as D documents in the DCCAM numbering system. That is English 00342, 452, Khmer 003347457, French 00485-437. He also says that other sources are from Takeo province, that is English 00342-455, Khmer 003347460, and French 00485-437. He also states that some documents were taken from the office of the district front, but it is unclear where the district front received the documents from. English 00342-454, Khmer 003347459, and French 00485-439. The district front supposedly collected the documents from the village and commune levels, so he says, but it did not take the original documents from Krang Tachan itself. And finally, a relevant excerpt from Yuk Chang's statement. In addition, when searching through S21 again, some documents were found under a wooden cabinet, English ERN 00342-543, Khmer 003347458, and French 00485-438. And a number of other relevant documents, meanwhile, were found later, but given numbers in the relevant DCCAM sequence. That is English 00342-452, Khmer 003347457, and French 00485-437. That concludes the first document I am presenting to you this morning, Mr. President. Now, if we even set aside concerns about the heavy reliance on the Tram Kok district records and consider them for their content, not all of these documents paint the universally brutal picture of the regime that the prosecution would have you believe. I will now present a number of documents, some of which the prosecution has already presented, that present an alternative view of at least some of the events relating to Krang Tachan. We have divided these documents into 5 categories. The first category are documents illustrating that multiple attempts were made to re-educate people. So these documents indicate that multiple attempts were made to re-educate people into changing their behavior at the commune level before matters were escalated, if that happened at all. I would like to present 4 illustrative examples. Mr. President, the first document shows that law and order officials and soldiers were among those who might be re-educated multiple times. Document E3/4092, also presented yesterday by the prosecution. It's a document entitled Notebook of KTC Interrogator, and contains confessions of 107 persons, including women, men, youth, and Lon Nol soldiers. The English ERNs that I'm referring to are 00834 826 till 28, Khmer 0027 1162 till 4, and French 00721306. This document lists several incidents of people being re-educated on multiple occasions at the commune level. It also illustrates how sending people to a re-education center did not mean certain death, but implies that people could in fact return from re-education centers to the communes. Specifically, this document E3/4092 describes at least 2 people who were re-educated and who were former Lon Nol soldiers. Number 1, that is English 00834 Khmer 0027 1162 till 63, and 00721306 in French, relates to a warrant officer called Pok Bun Li. Pok Bun Li was in Ang Ta Som commune, committed thefts very often, I quote, which is why, again quote, the cooperative representative arrested and sent him to the re-education camp many times. Kung Vet, a Lon Nol corporal who was also living in Ang Ta Som commune, was apparently, I quote, a major thief who, I quote again, stole potatoes 5 times, coconuts 3 times, and corns twice, and who the cooperative representative educated on several occasions, but, I quote again, who resisted stubbornly. That is English ERN 00834 828, Khmer 0027 1164, and French 0072 1307 till 08. The next document, Mr. President, shows that also new people might be re-educated more than once. E3/4101, that is a report from Krang Tachan to the district office, dated 7 March 1977, and signed by An. On English ERN 00322 Khmer 0027 1034, and French 00854 216. We can see that this report describes Kim Vani, a new person assigned to a youth assembly unit in Srei Renung commune, who apparently, and I quote, really stole very often, such as coconuts, cassava roots, and climbing up the palm trees at night to steal the palm juice of the cooperative for drinking, etc. And it says that the chief of the unit has educated him several times, but he still continued to commit the thefts. Yet another document, Mr. President, shows how at least 5 people, including Lon Nol officials and soldiers, new people, and frequent thieves, faced multiple rounds of re-education to correct their behavior. I refer you to, that's the next document, E3/2424. That is a compilation of reports between sub-district's office, this district, and Krang Tachan, which appears to date from 1978. The English ERNs are 003222217, ending in 2022 and 25. The Khmer ERN 0027075 and ERNs ending in 59, 62, 63 and 75. And the French ERN 006122215 and ERNs ending in 21 and 23 till 24. Now this document, this report, E3/2424, describes the re-education history of several people. And for instance, an 18 August 1978 report from Cheng of Ang Ta Som commune to, I quote, respected comrade, elder brother police of District 105, describes Kong Vait, a former military person of unknown rank who, and I quote, was such a great stealer, unquote. He, quote, had been educated so far by the group, unit, and by the collective meetings for the past 3 years period, end of quote. And after this apparently failed, he was, and I quote, individually educated by a hot measure. That is English ERN 003222220, Khmer 002707555, and French 006122219. In the same document, we can see an 8 July letter from Bin and Yat from an unknown location to the, I quote, beloved base party, and concerned Ni, a surgical doctor from Phnom Penh, who reportedly, and I quote, committed cheap deeds of theft several times so far, and who officials had, quote again, educated several times, but nevertheless, quote, still abuses the party guidelines. That is 003222222, Khmer 002707559, and French 006122219. In this E3/2424, there's another document, the date, author, and recipient unknown, which details two pieces of information about 2 further people living in Ang Ta Som. First, somebody called Pok Bun Lee, a 27-year-old new person of Vietnamese heritage, who, and I quote, had a lot of disputes, including stealing, for which he was educated very often, until he was brought for education in the commune militia office once already. However, the report complained, and I quote, though he had been educated, he still repeated his same activities. English, ERN 003222225, Khmer 002707763, and French 006122223 and 006122224. Om Chanta was, and I quote, serving in the enemy's forces when living in the enemy's area, and, I quote, has stolen and incited to fight the revolution, unquote. It's noted in this document that, I quote, our party has decided to bring him to the Commune Militia Office for education once already. But, and I quote, during the education, this youth fled from the office twice. Later, the party decided to bring him back to the youth office. End of quote. And a new quote, though he has been educated very often, every day he continues to steal. English 003-22225, Khmer 002-70762, and French 006-1222223. And finally, Mr. President, in this document E3/2424, a document from Chun at Tram Kok, dated 27 July 1978, and addressed to, and I quote, lovely comrade elder brother district police, which described Suan P, a 25-year-old from District 109 in Takiu, who was, and I quote, good at stealing things which belong to the collective, unquote, and who officials, quote, try to educate in whatever manner, end of quote. English ERN 003-22217, Khmer 002-70775, and French 006-12215. The next document, Mr. President, Your Honours, is E3/2048. This is a document also presented yesterday by the prosecution. It is a report to An by an unknown author, dated March 4, year unknown. And it mentions the sub-district militia bringing in those who held officer ranks and who have been re-educated before. English ERN 002-76566, Khmer 000-79094, and French 006-1163. This report, E3/2048, mentions Kionet and Trung, who both held officer ranks. Kionut, and I quote, incited Trung to run off, and he has stolen the belongings of the people constantly, never fearful, end of quote. And the report's author then complained that, and I quote, the base has re-educated them to the utmost of its capabilities, end of quote. A fourth and final document, Mr. President, also is yet, we believe, another example of multiple attempts to re-educate people who mostly appear to be frequently stealing from or damaging communal supplies. It is document E3/2107, also presented yesterday by the prosecution. It's a Krang Tachan notebook, English ERN 00290-205, 22, 45 till 6, and 56. Khmer 0006850, 60, 75, 74, 80, and 81, and French 00655-726, 39, 60 to 61, 68, and 69. Now, in this document, E3/2107, we can read that Chu Sovan, a former monk living in various locations, including Kus sub-district, stole, and I quote, palm sugar water and coconuts and jams frequently, to the point that Ankar has re-educated and built him time after time. English 002-90205, Khmer 000-68050, and French 006-55726. We can also read about a man called Kang Sun, who, and I quote, killed cooperative cows with a hatchet, unquote, and yet, I quote, Ankar re-educated him each time, unquote. the same person allegedly did not clean rice, and also, I quote, 2 or 3 times he killed chickens and ate them. English 00290 222, Khmer 0068060, and French 006555739. It also relates a man named Krao Pa, a district militiaman who allegedly raped a girl. He, and I quote, fought with our army very frequently at Tiksam and committed a violation about eating, for which the unit chairman, and I quote, re-educated him often. After this, he had yet another unspecified conflict, after which the chairman, and I quote, re-educated him until 9 before releasing him, unquote. That is English 0029024 until 6, Khmer 0006874, and French 006555760 until 61. Chia Sopal, who joined the military in 1973, was a member of the Kus sub-district youth unit and was described as, and I quote, the thief of thieves. The report detailed how, and I quote, the unit representative has re-educated him over and over, but it has not worked, unquote. 0029026 in English, Khmer 0006880, and French 006555768. Finally, Mr. President, Ngao Kia from Chiang Tong sub-district was described as having stolen manioc, not quite sure what that is, sugar dumplings, rice, and having a conflict with the cook and throwing things at the cook's roof. And it says, while, and I quote, Ankar has frequently re-educated him about this behavior, the report complained that, and I quote, he kept on stealing like this. 00290-256 and Khmer 000688081 and French 006555769. Mr. President, I will now move on to another category of documents offering some insight into Krang Tachan. These documents are those which showed officials behaving cautiously with respect to the treatment of troubling people by sending detailed reports of behavior and requesting instructions to be issued by those senior to them. I would like to start with a document also presented yesterday by the prosecution, E3/2453. This document is a compilation of reports within Tram Kok district, including 4 particularly relevant reports. English ERNs 0038857 80, 84, and 86. Khmer 002707773 77, 82, and 84. And French 006117669 71, 74, and 75. The first report is dated 13 October 1977 and written by Kun from Srey Renung to the party. It details the actions of Han, a widow in Srey Renung sub-district, who is a major thief, unquote. Kun requests the party's decision about the above report. That is English 0038885. 003888580, Khmer 002707777, and French 006117771. Another report from Ang Ta Som to the Tram Kok district details information on 2 persons and requests to know, and I quote, whatever Ankar decides. English 0038856 577, Khmer 002707773, and French 006117769. A third report within this document E3/2453 is from me in Nang Nang commune to the district party. And this report ends with, and I quote, "May the party be informed and request that whatever decision the party makes be sent for information," unquote. English 003-88584, Khmer 002-70782, and French 006-11774. And finally, Mr. President, the fourth report, also from Min of Nyang Nyang commune, that concerns 4 people named Luo, Suz, Yun, and Bang, who want to, I quote, "smash the revolution," unquote. This report ends with also, quote, "May the party be informed about the 4 of them and please provide us information on whatever the party decides," unquote. English ERN 003-8858. 003-88586, Khmer 002-70784, and French 006-11775. The next document, we use that again, that is the earlier mentioned E3/2048. Also, this document appears to be a compilation of documents, 2 of which we believe are particularly relevant here. English ERN 002765562, and ERN ending in 64. Khmer 0007987, ending in 91, and French 00611 ending in 61. In this document E3/2048, the first is a note dated 3 April 1977 from Pan of Popel Commune, and it requests, and I quote, "Ankara pass judgment," unquote, "regarding certain new people, including," and I quote, "whether to have us send them in or what," end of quote. That is English 002765562, Khmer 0007987-88, and French 006116558. And another document, Mr. President, in the same compilation is a note from Tapem, Sub-District Cooperative Secretary Kit, to Ankara, and it details 6 soldiers, all first or second lieutenant, who, and I quote, "have personally carried out activities every single day," unquote. And it concludes this report that, I quote, "whatever Ankara's decision, request opinion and instructions." English ERN 00276564, Khmer 000799091, and French 006116661. I'd like to move on to the next document, that is E3/4105. This report is apparently from Tramkok Commune Militia and is addressed to Ankara of the district and dated 19 April 1977. English ERN 0032135, Khmer 002709993, and French 008-56212. And this report requests further instructions from District 105, Ankara, after arrest of a member of the commune, and says as follows, and I quote, "We beg to ask the Ankara of the district that where should this person be sent to or how to solve it. Please give opinion on it," end of quote. I now move on to yet another category within these documents, Mr. President. That's the use of so-called hot methods in interrogation. Also contrasting with the prosecution's picture of events at Krang Tachan are a number of documents which apparently indicate that hot methods of interrogation were not always used, and indeed sometimes appear to be used only very rarely. The first is a document which has been mentioned at length by the prosecution yesterday, E3/4095. It's an interrogator's notebook with the, I will come back to that, very interesting heading called Fifth Confession and Contemptible Traitors, Pol Pot and Ieng Sary. English ERN 0074 7287 ending 79. Khmer 00271124 and French 0072 1252 ending 61. Mr. President, this notebook is a lengthy document containing information regarding the interrogation of approximately 105 different prisoners at Krang Tachan, including a large number of Lon Nol soldiers, as the prosecution detailed yesterday. However, throughout all these citations, hot methods are only mentioned as being used on 2 of these people. Concerning the person Yang Kang, the report indicates that, and I quote, this person was interrogated with some of, unquote, of, quote, hot methods to dig up his network, but he refused to confess, end of quote. That is English ERN 0074 7287, Khmer 00271124, and French 0072 1252. And concerning the person Tak Uk, the report says that he was beaten during the integration, presumably a typo intended to say interrogation, but he did not confess. I have the English ERN 0074 7279. For some reason, right now I cannot produce the Khmer ERN, but I can now. That is 00271118. It has a note that I should slow down. I will. And French 0072 1261. A second document, Mr. President, we believe demonstrates the same phenomenon. It is E3/4092. As mentioned earlier, this Krang Tachan interrogator's notebook contains confessions of 107 persons, including women, men, youth, and Lon Nol soldiers. The English ERN 00834795, ERNs ending 05, 16, and 22. Khmer 00271135, ending 46, 55, and 59. And French 0072 1276, ending 87, 96, and 302. Mr. President, like with the document discussed before, of the 107 persons detailed in these documents, there seem to be only 4 occasions on which the persons were subjected to, and I quote, intense interrogation, unquote. I should note the French version interrogates interrogation in 4 different ways without using the word intense. So there seemed to be a bit of difference in translation between the French and the English. But only in 4 occasions of the 107 persons who were detained, apparently hot methods were used. Mr. President, we will revisit these documents most likely during our objections later this week. But for now, let me just note that considering that both notebooks specifically seem to indicate where hot methods were used, suggests that they were not standard practice. Otherwise, why would they be indicated at all, is the question. Moreover, regarding the first notebook, E3/4095, as the prosecution mentioned yesterday, some of the persons listed included the family of trial witness Mia Sokha, and they include, for instance, Mia Sokha's mother, Hun Kim Seng, and his sister, Mia Sarat, both of whom we have recently requested to appear as witnesses. Now, as we know, these people are still alive today, so unless the prosecution can produce evidence to the contrary, it is very possible that many people, in fact, in the notebook may have survived. And this goes to a broader issue, of course, which is how often executions at Krang Tachan occurred at all.
President, the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, do you have the floor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make one objection here. Obviously, counsel was allowed to address and present these documents and explain their importance. Crossing into the realm of making a closing argument where we start to argue about what witnesses have testified, I think is something we avoided. I could stand up and respond that we've had testimony from the guards who said that everyone, with a few exceptions, was killed. So I think this is not the time for counsel to start making conclusions. He has no basis to say that any time, every time torture was used, it would be documented. That's an argument from him. He has no basis to say there are other people in this book who were released. So I think we need to confine ourselves here to presenting the documents and not make arguments, because obviously if he's going to make arguments about witness testimony, I feel an obligation to respond. And I don't think we're at that point yet.
President, I'd like to hand the floor to Judge Claudia Franz to respond to the objection. Thank you.
Well, the prosecutor has pointed to something which has obviously always been a fine line in this kind of hearings. We have had the same issue again and again. Obviously drawing the line between presenting a document and commenting on it in a context is, as I said, fine. Counsel, we just wish to remind you this is not a closing speech, it's very obviously, so perhaps you could concentrate on what could really be seen as a presentation of documents as opposed of an evaluation at this point in time?
I will do my very best, Judge Vance, but sometimes I need to explain in one sentence or two sentences why I'm doing this. But I'll try to avoid closing submissions type arguments. Mr. President, I would now like to move to documents which might illustrate a different use of the word smash. These documents including in the so-called Tram Kok district, which indicate that the word smash or komtek has a variable meaning and cannot always simply be equated to execution. For example, document E3/2053. This is an undated report to the party written by Pum of Trapeang Tom South Cooperative, and it sums up the confessions of two individuals. English ERN 00276578, Khmer 000791122, French 003349996. The report relates to people named Okpat and C and identifies their network and the plans they had. Significantly, it says that the two people, and I quote, had a 5-year plan to ensure the smashing of the cooperatives, unquote, either in 5 years, 7 years, or otherwise, and I quote again, as necessary to wear down the cooperatives and to absolutely oppose communal eating, unquote. In addition, the report says that Ukpat and C had, and I quote, plans to contact the Yun and Thailand and use the weapons to smash the revolution, unquote. E3/2453. This is the relevant report is dated 18 October from Min of Ningnan to the district-based area party. English ERN 003-88586, Khmer 002-70784, and French 006-11775. The report in question identifies a network of 4 persons, Luoing Tri, Suis Ti, Yun Yan, and Bang Nan, with the author concluding that, and I quote, "My analysis is that they have plans to smash our revolution," unquote. Document E3/4092, presented yesterday also by the prosecution, and mentioned earlier. This is a Krang Tachan interrogator's notebook containing confessions of 107 persons. English ERN 008-34818, Khmer 002711155 until 56, and French 00721304. At this point, I draw your attention to a note which details the actions of Pan Nun, who, and I quote, organized a meeting to create plots with his clique of 4 people, end of quote, in order, quote, to smash and destroy the cooperative. That is on English ERN 00834-817-8, 002-711155 in Khmer, and French 00721304. Mr. President, the last category of documents I'm presenting this morning, which arguably provide insight into events at Krang Tachan, are 2 documents which relate to S21 specifically, but which we suggest to be relevant to other security centers in the DK. The pair of documents in this category discuss the apparently little-known fact that some prisoners, or quite a substantial number actually, were released from S21 contrary to the popular misconception that only 7 people survived S21. I'm referring to E3/7326. It is a fact sheet published by DC Cam called, and I quote, Pol Pot and his prisoners at secret prison S21, an overview on the release of prisoners of S21. English ERN 01002075-85. There's no Khmer translation available yet, Mr. President, and also no French translation available. Now, in this document, DC Cam provides details of several different categories of prisoners who were actually released from S21, such as children and Khmer Rouge cadres. The fact sheet gives a long list of prisoners who DC Cam says were released from S21 during the decay period. And in addition, it indicates which persons are reported to be alive, people whose the status is uncertain, and people who died after 1979. And relating to this document, Ms.
President, the Defense Counsel, please hold on, and the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Yes, Mr. President. I can't find any such document, E37326, in the system. So I don't know whether it has a original case file number. That may be the issue. Even though we were instructed to present documents relating to Tramcock, I don't want to object at that point at this stage because I'd like to see what's in this document. Because the reason I'd like to see the document is the prisoners that were found weren't released; they were transferred to Prey-Sar. These people weren't released from S21. So I want to see the evidence that he's citing.
President Judge Zamalavenge, you have the floor.
Counsel Koppe, could you please explain to us what the relevance is of this document in view of the segment that we are involved with today, that is to say Tramcock District and possibly Krang Tachan Prison? I must confess that S21 does not seem to be part of this segment unless I am mistaken.
Correct, but S21 has been often referred to already in this segment. But the relevance of this document is to show that also from S21 a substantial number of prisoners were released, undermining the views of the prosecution and the view laid down in the closing order that nobody who entered Krang Tachan was released. So when we are making this comparison, I think that is also relevant for a view that we might have on the release of prisoners in Krang Tachan. Mr. Prosecutor, the document is E307/5.2.10, and the document that I'm presenting, Mr. President, Judge Lavergne, is also in relation to E3/39992, which is a article from the Cambodia Daily from Thursday, 28 August 2008, English ERN 0054823 until 4, Khmer 0081487 and French 008366686 till 91. And consistent with the document that
Maître Koppe, si je comprends bien, alors même que nous n'avons...
If I understand correctly, even though we have not examined facts regarding S21 and we didn't consider the fact whether the prisoners were released at S21, to use an article in which reference made to S-21 prisoners. Can we establish the fact that prisoners could have been released at Krang Tachan? Is that the reasoning? I have a hard time following your reasoning, Counsel.
Well, this article that I was quoting from the Cambodia Daily is from August 2008. I believe it's an article before the judgment of this trial chamber in the case of Duik. And it says basically that 177 prisoners were released from S-21, which is something that this trial chamber hasn't included in its judgment, and relates to the fact that in general people were released from security centers. Hence also from Krang Tachan a substantial number of people were released. That is our position. And I think by just introducing these two documents we should be able to put our presentation in the context of the context being prisoners were in fact released from security centers.
First, Mr. President, I still can't find the first document. I don't know whether he's reading it too quickly, but I cannot find the first document, the article I'm familiar with. I think it is premature to get into this at this point. I can tell you that we followed up. We put evidence that we will obviously deal with in the S-21 phase. We followed up on this. These prisoners were not released. They were sent to Prey-Sar. Many of them were then later sent back to S-21 and killed. The idea that this many prisoners were released, but we should be dealing with this at the S-21 phase, not now.
I'd be happy to repeat the words of the prosecution when he was questioning, I think, Richard Duckman, confronting him with prisoner list. That's what the prosecution is doing all the time. And I think putting Krang Tachan in the context of S-21 is not something that goes out of the segment of this trial.
Counsel, you're obviously making a closing style argument, but having said that, closing speeches style argument. Having said that, you appear to say these were your two questions in this context. Is that correct, or are you going to spend more time on this?
No, that's it. Only those two documents indicating that many prisoners, according to a recent confirmation, by the way, in The Guardian of Bayuk Chang, were in fact released. Having said that, Mr. President, I'm moving now to another topic, and that is unreliable documents or unreliable Krang Tachan documents of particularly limited probative value. Now, having highlighted several categories of documents which we believe are relevant to establishing events at Krang Tachan, I would like now to turn instead to highlight a number of documents which, by contrast, are only of particularly limited probative value because they are possibly at least partial forgeries. First, forgeries possibly made after 1979. I will first discuss a pair of documents relied on in the closing order at paragraphs 514, 500, and 1385 as the basis for the investigating judge's suggestion that at least 15,000 people were executed at Krang Tachan. And that document is E3/2107. It's a notebook from Krang Tachan containing 91 entries. English ERN 00290-205, Khmer 000-68049, and French 00655-725. Now at ERN 00290-205, there's an annotation from the ECC Khmer to English translator concerning a scribbled note on that page. And the translator says, and I quote, "Separate page, scribbled note, not in the same handwriting as the rest of the document," end of quote. And an examination of the Khmer original confirms that indeed this handwriting appears to be quite different. The scribbled note itself states that up until today, we have smashed 15,000 enemies, end of quote, and is the note that the investigating judges rely upon, as I said, in the closing order. Indeed, the scribbled text itself is written in two different handwritings. The first 4 lines are written by one handwriting, and the last 2 lines are written by a different handwriting. In addition, of all the 19 entries in the notebook, the scribbled note is clearly out of context. The rest of the notebook records individual confessions, unlike this high-level statistical remarks. This comment is the only one with an addressee, and the sentence, and I quote, "May the party be informed of this," a clear indication where it was written, and a signature, making it completely out of place among the other entries in the notebook. I note that the credibility of this scribbled note has been discussed with several witnesses during the hearings. I will not go into this argument that I have presented here, although it's very brief. But I would like to conclude with with our conclusion that we are absolutely convinced that this document is a post-1979 forgery designed to inflate the Krang Tachan death toll as much as possible. Indeed, the document's cover page indicates that it is entitled Fifth Confession, Contemptible Traitors Pol Pot and Ieng Sary, which is blatantly a notation added after the decay period.
President, the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, do you have the floor?
This is clearly argument, but that's not actually the reason I'm standing up. He's talking about 2 different documents. The notebook in which this 15,000 note appears, and I certainly agree with him. This is a different document than the notebook. The fact it's in 2 handwritings, he's using that as to say it's a forgery. If he wants to make a request to the court, fine. The document that has the handwriting on the cover, Fifth Confession, Pol Pot and Ieng Sary, is a different notebook. So he's misstating the documents he's presenting here. And that I do object to. If he wants to make some arguments to explain why he's presenting these, that's fine.
I agree that these are 2 different documents, but I'm making the point that this other document, which says the Ieng Sary, Pol Pot traitors, is clearly a post-79 term. This meaning that these notebooks have been in the hands of the authorities after 79. So I'm making the connection with this 15,000 scribbled note to the other annotation clearly dating post-79. So I agree with the prosecution. These are in fact 2 documents. Document E3/4145. Mr. President, this document appears to be a compilation of different prisoner lists from Krang Tachan, English ERN 00762-844 and ERN ending in 37, Khmer 00068-736 and French 00761-100 and ERN ending in 093. Now the page with English ERN 00762-844 is a messy handwritten page with containing corrections that lists Yuk Sen as one of the prisoners detained for years pending the party's decision, and that Sai Sen confirms was a reference to him. The same page also names Krang Tachan as M105 and is the only document in the so-called Tram Kok district records collection to do so. It also lists Hun Kim Seng and Mia Sarat as other prisoners, but records their biography details completely incorrectly. in contrast with other so-called district records. And by contrast, the page with English ERN 00762 A37 in the same compilation document appears, at least from a visual and basic content perspective, to be a real document, being typewritten, being written on an apparent template, and referring to prisoner information, the accuracy of which has been confirmed by other witnesses. So we also hold that this is a forgery, a forged document. We will obviously come back to that at another stage in this segment. Mr. President, these documents, and I will conclude my remarks maybe before the break. These documents, if forgeries, seem likely to have been made after 1979 as a means of constructing the narrative of what occurred at Krang Tachan. There are also other documents, the authorship of which has been attributed to people who had testified during this trial segment, but which those people denied were written by them. These are possible DK-era forgeries, and looking at the clock, I think I should pause here.
President, the lead co-lawyer for civil parties, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the record. My objection is belated, but it is clear that we are facing a situation in which our learned friend is pleading, is making submissions. What he's doing is not a presentation of documents. It is impossible for us to read the ERNs he has referred to. We have gone well beyond the limit. I hope that the Chamber will give us the same latitude to present our documents. It is clear that our learned friend is pleading.
President, that is true. Since the Chamber scheduled the key document presentation, and of course they have their own discretion to present whatever documents they seem are key documents, and we set aside a day for the observations by the other parties, and that will be held on Thursday, the 30th of April 2015. And if you are to object the presentation by the other party, then there is no need to have another day for the presentation of your views and objections to those key document presentations. Therefore, please be patient, take note, and then you can request to be on your feet when the time comes for your observation. And that will be the right time for you to express your objections to the documents that you deemed are not appropriate. President, the time is convenient for a short break. We'll take a break now and return at 10:30. The court is now in recess.